He tried to erase Mom. One signed plan, and a calendar heart flipped the room, and forced a hallway photo plus quiet gray visits. Like and subscribe now, and turn on the bell so you never miss the next story. When I was 5, my dad kept 2 framed photos of my mom on the hallway shelf, and a construction paper calendar, where he penciled a tiny heart on her birthday. When I was 7, he married again, and the hallway turned blank in a weekend. Before, we visited her grave with supermarket flowers, and I learned to read her name off granite. After, he said the cemetery confuses the house. Before, he told me stories about how she laughed like she was trying not to, palms over teeth. After, he tightened his jaw and changed the subject, as if memory were a draft. He did not become cruel. He became curated. The new wife arrived 5 months after hello, and in that month he collected Mom into boxes. I helped carry one to the car because I was small and eager to be useful. The masking tape read "Mom's kitchen," and I watched it ride away toward my grandparents' porch like a little boat that knew my name. I kept an artifact list in my head because no one else seemed to. 2 frames gone, heart calendar gone, the shoebox of birthday cards gone. That last one hurt, because she had traced my hand in green crayon when I was 4, and called it a leaf she'd keep forever. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and new paint. The walls shone like a decision. When I asked where the calendar went, he said, "We're making room." When I asked whether we would still visit the grave, he said, "We're making a home." He spoke in slogans because slogans do not break when you push them. I learned to keep my questions small and my eyes on the floorboards. The hallway light hummed like a held breath while the boxes left. What exactly was I supposed to keep? Our normal life reassembled itself with new labels and a rule book I was not allowed to read. Photos of Mom were distracting. Her recipe cards dated. Her jewelry better with someone who will wear it. He drove a trunkful to my grandparents and allowed himself a single sigh at their door. The rest, things I had never seen her wear but had stared at in a bathroom tin, went to friends' wives, delivered with awkward laughter and a shrug that pretended generosity. Artifact row in the open, an empty stretch of hallway where picture hooks still pocked the paint, a cardboard flap marked MOM, bedroom tucked under my grandparents' hall table, a voicemail from Grandma saying, "We got the boxes, sweetheart." The new wife stood in the doorway like a bright answer to a question I had not asked. She was not unkind at first. She was observant. She noticed my eyes land on a bare patch of wall and changed the subject to a new lamp. She noticed the shoebox on my dresser and mentioned fresh starts, like a therapist on television. Dad echoed her tone, told me the grave was not helpful, that birthdays could turn people into ghosts, that loyalty meant facing forward. We stopped celebrating a day that used to be cake, quiet, and a whispered story about how she once burned a batch of cookies and laughed at the smoke like it was a prank. Instead, we learned the new wife's favorite songs and how to clear the table her way. I traced my hand in green again and hid it in a library book, leaf against leaf. At bedtime, I tried a test question. Will we ever say her name in the house? He kissed my hair and said, "We don't want anyone to feel left out." The words felt like furniture slid in front of a door. I stared at the ceiling and counted the turns of the fan. How many spins until a person disappears? The first crack was not mine. It was his lesson delivered like policy. A few months into the new marriage, after I asked whether we could bring flowers to Mom's grave, just us two, he shut the refrigerator with a soft thud and said, "Remarrying means you go all in with the new person. They take center stage. You need to do the same. She is your mom now, too." He said it kindly, like a doctor prescribing rest. I felt my ribs shrink around the words. From the hallway, I heard the new wife's voice drift like perfume. "I'm glad you added him. Sometimes I feel like he wants to put her between us." I went to my room and wrote a sentence in a wide-ruled spiral that my teacher had given me for spelling lists. "Dad says new mom now." I underlined new until the paper pillballed. Artifact row grew. The spiral page with that sentence, a pressed clover from the cemetery I had kept in a library book, and a birthday invitation I knew we would not use. When I tried to explain that there is only one mom and that I wanted to keep loving her without making the new wife smaller, he said love is not a pie, but also somehow the table had only one chair. He said loyalty tastes different after vows. He said I would understand when I am older. I was 9 and already older than whatever he wanted me to be. That night I set my sneakers by the door like we were leaving early, then remembered we were not leaving at all. The house felt staged, like it had been told not to make noise. What could a kid do besides hide a green crayon leaf and hope it did not get dusted? Years rolled like furniture sliders under a couch. Quiet, unstoppable, leaving faint tracks if you crouched low enough to see. Our relationship calcified into yes, sir routines and small rebellions measured in inches. He searched my room twice a year and called it tidying. Hands moving with the efficiency of a customs agent. I learned to keep nothing in plain sight and nothing valuable where it looked like hiding. He wrote cards to his wife from me, adding mom to the salutation without asking, and corrected me when I used her first name at dinner. He ripped a photo of mom and me at a pumpkin patch out of an album and said, "We cannot keep living in yesterday." And I watched the white threads in the plastic tremble as if time itself had nerves. Artifact row went private. A discreet envelope slid under Grandma's couch cushion with a locket inside. A library book that lived a long time in a backpack because a traced leaf hid there. A calendar square in January where I drew a dot and did not say why. Sometimes he told me to get over it twice in a month, and sometimes more. Sometimes he took a breath like he remembered how he used to be, and then exhaled it as someone else. When high school handed me a debate assignment, I wrote a position paper titled, "Why Remarrying Can Harm Children." It read like a diary that forgot its disguise halfway through. I never turned it in. I printed it anyway, slid it behind a binder tab, and forgot it existed until the day I caught his eyes on a copy machine light in the office, paper face down. He kept that print for 11 months, like a seed he meant to plant later. The day I circled on my mental map was 18 in January. The day he circled was therapy next week. Which clock would win? The low point arrived in a neutral room that smelled like wool and lavender, where a woman with kind eyes set a glass of water between us and said the word listening like it was a posture. He came armed with my paper, printed and highlighted, rant loaded like a slideshow. He said I wanted widows to die alone, that I was erasing the gift of a second chance, that I had gained a wonderful mom and was ungrateful. He talked over the counselor and then over me until she lifted a hand and said therapy requires air between sentences. He sat back, still vibrating. I told him my view had his fingerprints on it. I told him his choices taught me the ugliest version of remarriage, the kind that turns grief into a closing sale and a child into a prop. I told him his wife was the second worst thing that happened to me, and that losing mom was the first, and I said it without shouting because anger makes people deaf. Artifact row on the table. His printed copy of my paper with fluorescent lines, the counselor's business card with the session time scrawled in blue, an email on my phone where I had written to her after he spent days telling me I was narrow-minded and selfish. She read my email, called him, and canceled future sessions. He called me names, and then went quiet like a storm that moved 3 streets over. I stared at the ceiling vent and thought about how air moves even when rooms pretend it does not. He said I was blaming him for my issues. I said if he refused to care, I had to. The counselor's door clicked shut behind us. What room was left for the part of us that still remembered the heart on the calendar? I walked home from the lavender office and made a choice I could actually carry. If he would not make room for my mom, I would either build that room on paper or move to a place with real walls. I opened a blank doc and titled it Coexistence Plan, then wrote 5 lines in plain words. We keep one framed photo of my mom in the hallway. We visit her grave twice a year without an audience. No one searches my room. Cards to your wife come from me, not written for me. I will never be forced to say mom to anyone else. I added an off-ramp in 1 sentence. Sign this and we try. Refuse and I leave in January when I turn 18. Artifact row on my desk. The coexistence plan printed and dated. A budget spreadsheet with rent in 1 column and a part-time pay line in another. A list titled inventory. Mom that named the locket, the traced leaf, 2 photos, and a small tin. I scanned everything to a folder called Heart Calendar and backed it up to a drive I hid in a sock under the bottom drawer's false back. Then I drafted an email to Grandma with the subject, "If I need to land," and left it in drafts so it would carry a time stamp when I sent it. The house smelled like lemon cleaner again. I slid the plan into an envelope and wrote his name on the front in my neatest block letters. I pictured the kitchen table, the pen, the silence you can hear, and the way signatures sound even when no one speaks. Would he read it like a map or like a threat? Preparation was not a movie. It was breathing with a pencil in my hand. I took the bus to Grandma's, repacked the locket and the traced leaf into a cookie tin, and labeled it stamps so no one would snoop. She tucked it behind old recipe books and kissed my hair without asking for a speech. At school, I sat with the guidance counselor, who printed a list titled Youth Legal Clinic and circled walk-in on Thursdays. I folded it into my wallet beside a bank card with $50 left and a handwritten pen I could recite in my sleep. I asked for extra weekend shifts at the hardware store and printed the email where my manager wrote approved. I taped a calendar page to my wall and wrote January 18th in blue, then penciled small dots on paydays to make the month look climbable. Artifact row grew. The counselor's clinic list. A cheap lease template I had downloaded and highlighted. A screenshot of a savings app with a round number that felt like a start. I also printed the therapist's rules about speaking in nouns and clipped them behind the coexistence plan, so I could hold that tone when his eyebrows tried to turn me into a lecture. I texted my aunt to ask if she would be on speaker as a witness for a talk, and she replied with a thumbs up and 3 words that meant more than most hugs. I will listen. The house hummed like a transformer when I slid the envelope under the salt shaker. My hands did not shake. The clock in the hallway clicked like a metronome for a song I did not know yet. Would he meet me at the table or move the conversation to a search? He read sitting down, which was new. The envelope lay open like a small mouth, while our kitchen light threw a circle on the wood. His finger traced the first line, one framed photo in the hallway, and stopped like it had touched a splinter. "This is disrespectful," he started, and I pointed at the 5th line, the one about cards I would write myself, and said, "This is dignity." I slid my phone across the table with the therapist's one-pager under it and said, "Nouns only." He breathed, then read, then breathed again. Over the speaker my aunt said my name once, and then did not fill the air. What he called the gray visits performative. I set down a small stack. A copy of the old calendar page with the green heart, a print of Grandma's voicemail transcript the day the boxes arrived, and the counselor's walk-in sheet with Thursdays circled. Artifact row on the table, the coexistence plan, the calendar heart, a blank signature line. My aunt's name lit on the screen. He said the line about turning 18 sounded like a threat. I said it sounded like a date. He asked whether I would really throw away family. I asked whether he would really keep throwing away a mother. Silence had a weight none of us could hold. He tapped the page with 2 knuckles and said he needed time. I wrote a deadline at the bottom, Sunday night, and slid the pen beside it. The salt shaker leaned against his wrist like a doorstop. He stood, folded the paper once, and left the room without taking the pen. Would the paper come back with ink, or would my drawers come back empty? The answer arrived sideways. Saturday morning the door to my room swung open without a knock, the way doors do when people think they own more than hinges. He did not touch the sock drawer, but he lifted the mattress and stared at the hollow where a tin had never lived. He opened my closet, scanned for shoeboxes, moved hangers like he was listening for a chime. On my desk he found the budget spreadsheet and circled rent with his finger as if the number had insulted him. He said, "You are not moving anywhere." And I thought about how sentences try to lock bodies. I reached for the inventory list, loose on my desk by mistake, and slipped it into my back pocket, heat rising in my face. Artifact row in the moment, his shadow across my desk, the spreadsheet, the inventory list folded twice, the therapist's one-pager pinned under a magnet that said breathe. He left the room, and I heard the back door open, then his car start, then the quiet that follows a slammed engine. 10 minutes later my aunt texted. He called me. I told him Sunday is fair. Grandma sent a photo of the cookie tin with a checkmark drawn on a note card. The image looked like a lighthouse. I took the coexistence plan back to the table and added a line at the top. Searches stop now. Then I wrote a second envelope and addressed it to me at Grandma's, self-addressed and stamped, so that whatever happened Sunday would have a place to land that was not my chest. I stood in the hallway where the hooks used to live and measured the space between new paint and old holes with my hand. Would a frame fit, or would a key? Sunday evening he sat, and the house sat with him. The plan lay between us, the pen like a small metal bridge we could both reach. He said he had spoken to his wife and to the pastor, and that center stage had not been a good phrase. He said he would allow the visits if they stayed private, and that a single framed photo in the hallway would be acceptable if we did not make a shrine. He called the search bad timing. Not wrong. He added he would not stop correcting me if I used her first name at the table, because words mean roles. Artifact row on the wood, the plan now with 2 small edits written in his hand, a narrow yes on the photo, a conditional maybe on the grave, a blank where searches should have been an apology. I took a breath that tasted like old dust and new rain. I wrote no more room searches in darker ink, slid the paper back, and tapped the line about cards I write myself. He huffed, then nodded once, then said his name in a careful loop. The pen scratched like a match. He did not look at me when he signed. I did not look at him when I countersigned. We both looked at the paper as if it could do the living for us. I copied the plan, folded one into the self-addressed envelope, and dropped it in the mailbox so the postmark would exist outside my house. He stood, touched the back of a chair like it might bite, and said, "We will try." I said, "So will I." The hallway hummed. Monday is my mom's birthday. Do I hang the frame now, or wait until morning? What would you do in my place? Frame the photo tonight, take flowers tomorrow without asking, or hold the plan a week to see if paper can teach people? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss the next story.